All right, so we're looking at fuel economy. So occasionally when I fill my car with gas, I figure out how many miles per gallon my car got. I wrote down those results after 6 fill-ups the past few months. Overall, it appears my car gets 26.4 miles per gallon. So what statistic have I calculated? Like, what was I finding?
Like gas to fill up ratio. Wait, no. Just how many miles per gallon?
Yeah, basically the average mileage for 6 fill-ups, and that's where I recorded it for. So, average mileage for 6 fill-ups that data was recorded for. So essentially, like, 6 fill-ups. Basically figuring out miles per gallon each time I go. So what is the parameter I'm trying to calculate? Well, that would be the miles per gallon, essentially, for my particular car. So miles per gallon. All right, so this next one may require you to infer some information, or if you've ever gone looking at cars, then you might have a clue how this could be biased, but how might it be biased?
I guess it depends on the size of the car, or if fuel economy
So I mean, this is one consistent car. This is just this one person's car, but
maybe the distances they drive.
what do you mean?
Is it just like the fact that they track it occasionally? It's like,
Yeah. I just wasn't curious.
Oh, are they supposed to go 4th period today?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I'd already forgotten.
I did too until you walked in here.
Alright.
so would it be occasionally maybe? Like, because they don't always track it?
Well, I mean, possibly. She says over the past few months. She doesn't say it's consistently in a row, so that's possible. There's one other thing. Have you ever gone to a car lot and looked at the window tag that's in a car?
yes,
Do you know what they put on there?
how many miles it has on it.
Well, yes, that is one thing. But there's 2 miles per gallon numbers that they put on there. Do you know why?
Is one the actual one and one just what they say? Or
So one is what they would classify as around town, which means just basically stop and go driving, like you're going through stoplights. So around town would be because none of us have to get on the interstate, driving from our house to school, basically. Then they give you one that's called highway miles per gallon, which is essentially, obviously, it's not always completely accurate because you have to start and stop, when you go to the gas station to fill up or whatever. But hypothetically, my mileage on the highway, meaning on the interstate, over and over again.
sorry.
But my mileage typically that's going to be better because I'm going at a more consistent speed. I'm not starting and stopping. Now, if you're, in Hampton Roads and you're driving across the bridge, it's not always going to be accurate either. But if you just took off on a trip, your miles per gallon typically are going to be drastically better than just around town. So that's what we don't know where she's driving, and we don't know if she's doing something consistent every time. So, but yes, essentially the time frame that it was taken in, which is what you had said, or we don't know if she did it every time because it says over several months. You almost got it.
Just gonna leave it like that. For now, Grace.
All right, so around town versus highway. And then the time frame, which would be stuff did she check it every time? 6 times in a row. Also, sometimes the other thing that can make a difference, it's not, I mean, I don't have any statistical evidence to back this up, but if it's like hotter outside or colder outside, so like the weather can make a difference to a point. Supposedly on like, they'll even tell you that about like when you fill up your car with gas, like when it's better to do it like first thing in the morning because it's not as hot outside and stuff like that. But I don't know if that actually makes a difference. But anyways, so when the EPA checks a car like mine, okay, whatever, not actually my car, to predict its fuel economy, what parameter is, like, are they trying to calculate? So essentially the EPA is obviously the Environmental Protection Agency, but they're checking, like, all the vehicles or whatever. What are they looking for when they're doing, like, fuel economy? Or what do you think they should be looking at?
It wouldn't be miles per gallon again, would it?
Well, I mean, sort of, but, like, how are they doing that? I mean, that is what fuel economy is, but, like, let's just do this. Virginia, what kind of car do you drive?
Honda Pilots.
Honda Pilot. Josh, what do you drive?
Hyundai Azera.
What do you drive, Chris?
Toyota Camry.
And I drive a Dodge Durango. So do you think if all of us took off driving that we should compare or use that to make one statistical thing and say, well, we get this many miles per gallon, right? Because we all drive very, very different vehicles.
So is it like?
So what do you think they are doing?
Like you're doing it by types of car.
Potentially type of car,
Or like
but more specific than that.
size of the
Like how, like we don't just want to test a whole bunch of Hondas,
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't even want to test like the CRV and the Pilot. What should I do instead?
Test a bunch of different cars.
What do you mean?
I don't know.
Wouldn't it make the most sense for me to drive 20 Honda Pilots and get their gas mileage
Oh, so like.
than it would for me to drive a Honda Pilot and a Honda CRV and I don't even know what all the other Hondas are, but you know what I mean, like the principle of it, right? I would want to drive the same car over and over again, like same exact make, model, year
Okay.
to determine
More
that.
accurate data.
So that's what they're doing, and they're doing that for every single vehicle. So those window stickers that I'm talking about, they didn't take that car that's sitting on the lot and drive it, you know, however many miles. They just took several of that same make and model and year and drove a bunch of those around to determine what it should be. So it'll say something like, on average, your around town mileage is blah, 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 or your highway mileage is blah, blah, blah. But yours may be better or worse depending on, you know, if there's any added things to your car. It's just talking about cars of the same make, model, and year. So we want to check multiple of the same car. For mean gas mileage. Meaning make, model, and year. Because in terms of size of the vehicle, Virginia and I would be driving a very similar size vehicle. I mean, I don't know if yours is third row seat, but hypothetically, third row seat, you know, I don't know what year yours is, but if let's just say they were both the year of, like, the same year, like, we wouldn't even want to be comparing those unless I'm just trying to determine which car I should buy for my family car because I want the better gas mileage. Right. But I would want to compare a whole bunch of Durangos versus a whole bunch of Pilots or something like that to get their own individual things.
Where are you going?
He's going very early.
Because they said that the people would be there on the music classes, so.
Have fun, sing,
Yes, ma'am. Goodbye.
goodbye.
All right, number 9. Consider each of the situations. Do you think the proposed sampling method is appropriate? Explain. All right, this question's going to show some age. We want to know what percentage of local doctors accept Medicaid patients. We call the offices of 50 doctors randomly selected from local Yellow Page listings.
Yeah.
Do you know what a Yellow Page is?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's in the phone book, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's make it-
Just checking to make sure, because one year I had that in the class, they all looked at me and went, "What's Yellow Pages?" I was like, y'all don't remember the phone books getting thrown on your driveway, like, randomly and,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
whatever?
I remember just like reading one, just because I was bored one day. I was like, why not?
Yeah.
I remember we would look in the back because we had a friend that was like a lawyer, and so we'd like try to find his like thing in the Yellow Pages.
Just for fun.
That was about it.
So
That's
maybe
all
y'all
it
will
is.
be able to answer this question then, because that year nobody could answer the question because they didn't know. But, so we want to know which ones accept Medicaid patients. So they call the 50 doctors' offices randomly from the Yellow Page listings. So do you think this method is appropriate or not?
Yeah.
I want to say yeah, but I feel like something's off.
Okay, so something is off. So let's talk about what could potentially be off about it.
Like the location of the hospital, maybe. No.
I mean, they say local, so.
Oh yeah, never mind.
So, again, y'all probably don't know enough about it, but do you think that it costs money to put your office in there? So do you think that every doctor's office is in there?
No.
So what type of bias might this cause?
Under coverage.
Yep. Yellow Pages cost money, so every doctor might not be in there.
They still make phone books.
Truthfully, I don't know. Like, I think you can request one, but I don't think they just, like, toss them out to every house like they used to. Like, y'all were probably very little when they stopped, like, just randomly tossing them out. There's one that they would still send out up until a few years ago that was, like, a much skinnier one that was, like, certain things. But it wasn't, like, to the extent that, I mean, if you remember, the phone books were heavy. They were probably, like, a good 10 pounds. Like, it was about the size of a math book. Like, it was crazy.
They barely even like. I haven't seen in so long that even like tossing a newspaper on our driveway anymore.
Well, that's because your parents don't pay for a newspaper, probably.
Oh.
There
Wait,
was
was it free at one point?
No, but it would be, like,
Straight away.
super cheap. It was probably, like, less than $1 or something
That's
for, like, a
not bad.
week. And now it's, like, $1 a edition, probably.
I forget what it was.
Like, my granddad stopped getting it. I was like, I never thought I'd see that day. It's like, yeah, no, it's like, it's gone pretty crazy. If people want it, they'll usually just go to the local grocery store and pick one up if they want.
Yeah.
Like, for example, like, the people that make the all-conference team, like, it'll be published in the newspaper, so, like, sometimes the parents will want it, and they can just go to, like, a random grocery store and pick up a paper.
Yeah.
My parents got a newspaper when they like got married or something because like they just were in a small area, so like nothing exciting happens. So
Yeah, it just depends. Like, the Daily Press newspaper is pretty expensive, so.
That was my dad's first job. He said was like he was on like road
The paper
bike.
boy?
Yeah, just like drove or like did it around town.
Because that was the
That's
thing
so
that, like,
sick.
kids could do. It was super
Yeah.
easy. You would just drop the paper off, and
I would do that now.
I mean, there are people that are still, I mean, not to that extent of just, like, riding their bike around and just, like, chucking
in a
it
car
out,
now.
but,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was like,
Because I've watched them do it a few times, because sometimes they don't make it very far into the driveway.
My dad would always get mad when they would toss them. He'd be like, "Why are they just throwing them at the end of the driveway?" And, like, they would just get like, and then they get rained on, and it was just like
Yeah.
soggy at the end of the driveway.
Yeah, in Louisiana, I mean, some people around here have them, but it's pretty predominant, like at least in the area where my grandparents were and stuff. But underneath your mailbox was a newspaper box, so like that was what they would stick your newspaper in,
I don't think I've ever seen
so that it wouldn't get like wet. So it
We
was
don't
kind
even have a mailbox. We have like a thing on the side of our house.
of.
Like,
So your
What?
mailman walks.
Yeah.
Ours does too, but we have like a normal mailbox just in front of our house.
We don't have one of those. We keep saying we're gonna get one because my mom wants to decorate a mailbox. She's like, I can't do it because we only have like that little tiny one.
Yeah.
Oh wait, do you mean just the little ones that like open on like
Yeah.
they're like
Yeah,
right
the
through your
little
house?
flip
Okay,
tops.
yeah, we had those.
Yeah.
This is like the house we just moved to. That's like my first actual mailbox.
There's pros and cons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When it's raining, it's nice to be able to just step out and grab your mail without having to like walk to the end of the road, or like into your driveway. But all right, so that one was under coverage. And we want to know what % of local businesses anticipate hiring additional employees in the upcoming month. We randomly select a page of the Yellow Pages and call every business listed there. What do you think about this one? Again, if you don't know a whole lot about them, this may be a harder question to answer.
Is this also undercover? Just because like.
So it will be. Yeah. So let me tell you how. So Yellow Pages are organized so that similar things are together. So like all grocery stores, all like doctor's offices, all post offices, all, fill in the blank, whatever, are all listed together. So what would be you've already said undercoverage, that is going to be part of it for a similar reason to the one above. But what else might be, like, what is the specific issue with this method that they're using?
Bad sample frame. Because they're only calling like certain businesses that are grouped together, and also businesses that like paid to be in the phone book.
So
it's
so that's where the undercoverage part comes from. So
Okay.
if they're, but like you said, so they're only calling essentially one type of business, because if you pull one page, probably at most, if you get lucky in the page that you choose, there might be two types of business, right? If it's like the end of one section and the beginning of another. So these things are grouped. So what is that? What kind of sampling is that? Yeah. So they're using essentially cluster sampling and thus getting an undercoverage because of that. So you're likely to get all of the same type of business. Because that's how it's organized. So it's not representative. Of all types of business. Or businesses. It's under coverage. And probably cluster sampling. So something that could make it a little bit better, still would have the issue of under coverage, but in the grand scheme of things, not as big of a deal necessarily. So perhaps what they should maybe do is to stratify and say, for all of the business pages, I'm going to choose the 5th listing on every page, and I'm going to call them. So where they're like stratifying it in, not stratifying, systematic, I mean. So they're using like systematic of saying every page I'm going to pull the fifth one on here. Kind of like when we did the thing with the airplane yesterday, every 10th passenger going on the plane. All right, so the last question is a quality control question. So it's kind of back to, we've had, several like this. But Sammy's Salsa, a small local company, produces 20 cases of salsa a day. Each case contains 12 jars and is imprinted with a code indicating the date and a batch number, essentially. To help maintain consistency at the end of each day, Sammy selects 3 jars of salsa, weighs the contents, and tastes the product. Help Sammy select the sample jars. Today's cases are coded 07 and 61 through 07 and 80. So that's the 20 cases. So carefully explain your sampling strategy. So what do you think we need to do? And this may tie in a little bit with last section. Like if we were going to run trials, like what would you do?
Like, do 3 trials or like maybe do a random like of the numbers, like of the codes.
Yeah. So notice these codes are like 07N is on both. So the only thing that's different are the last digits, right? So when I'm doing that, I would say they've already given us, it says the numbers basically 61 through 80 are our cases, right? So I would say we're going to use 61 through 80 to represent the 20 cases. And you said to do 3 trials, so that's fine. So pick 3 2-digit numbers and ignore repeats, right, because we can't pull the same case twice, and numbers outside the range. So the ignoring numbers outside the range is more so if you're using a random number table. If you're using your calculator, we would just do random integer 61 through 80. And then we would just do basically a case at a time. If we get a repeat, we would just do it again. So what do we know about each case? What's in each case?
Salsa.
12 jars of salsa. So once he pulls the case, notice he's only selecting 3 jars to sample, right? Or however many he said. I don't know. We're just going to say 3. He's going to sample 3 jars at the end of the day. So once he picks a case, what does he then need to do?
Like do it out of 12, like which 3 he's gonna choose.
Yep. So you can either use, again, it just depends on what you're using, but I'm going to do it as if it's a 2-digit in case you're using a random number table. So basically use the numbers 0, I'm going to say 01 to 12, because then that way it's clearly labeled. So every jar in the box can have a number. So we can say, box facing this direction, this is jar 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so on and so forth. So to represent the 12 jars in each case, select 1 jar from each selected case. So with the way we've written number 1, or part A, we've kind of answered part B. So I'm going to take part B and add a little bit to it. So it says show how to use random numbers to pick 3 jars. So I'm going to first start out, what kind of sampling are we actually using?
Or randomization.
There's one that's a better. Because we picked a case. And so how are the jars grouped? By what? Every 12 jars is a case, so they're grouped. And then within the group, I've pulled something. Multi-stage using what?
Cluster and strata. Or SR.
I would say probably just SRS after that, because we're not picking one specific jar, we're doing it random. So cluster and SRS. And so specifically, we've selected 3 cases at random. Which is the cluster part. And then randomly select 1 jar from each case. Okay, so then the last question. Did you use a simple random sample? So that means like from the beginning. Like, did every single jar have an opportunity to be chosen?
Wait, yeah.
Are you sure?
No.
Once I pull 1 jar from 1 case, can I pull any more jars from that case?
Oh, no.
So SRS may not be exactly the best way to have worded this. We should say more like we've randomly selected. So maybe just take this part off because that's a little bit confusing in the way that it's written. Like we randomly selected a jar, so I would just say cluster and then random selection or something. I can't even spell. There we go. Because simple random sample implies from the beginning every jar has an equal chance of being chosen. But as soon as I pull 1 from that particular case, I can't pull another one. So I would say no, because all 3 jars can't come from the same case.